We don't talk about this, right? 6 and 3. 6 and 3.
Okay, we're calling to order the Cuyahoga County Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, October the 24th, 2016. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Calling the roll, Ms. Simon. Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Germana.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Hairston.
Here.
And Council President Brady.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Thank you. Is there any public comment related to the agenda?
There is none, Mr. President.
All right, we'll move to item 4. Would you please read the item into the record?
Resolution number 2016-0137, authorizing an electric service agreement with City of Cleveland, Department of Public Utilities, Division of Cleveland Public Power, in the amount not to exceed $68 million for electric power services for various county-owned buildings for the period September 1, 2016 through May 1, 2028.
And at this point, we'll have Director Foley and the Deputy Director step forward, but I believe that we have some brief comments by the County Executive first. That'd be fine if that's the way you want to do it.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me today. It's a pleasure to come before council to support the LEEDCO project. This project began years ago, and the county made a commitment at that time to support the creation of a wind farm in Lake Erie. The county invested funds and made a commitment to take a portion of the power produced by the wind turbines. This is not some pie-in-the-sky idea. The federal government is investing $40 million in our project, and a well-established private company is investing and taking the lead. While the wind power at this stage is more expensive than traditional carbon-based power, our Department of Sustainability has incorporated low-cost solar power and crafted a deal with Cleveland Public Power, which over the next 25 years will actually save the county money. And that time period may become shorter, much shorter potentially, depending on further action by both the state and federal governments. But this project is not simply about trying to save money. It's about creating a sustainable energy source that protects our environment for our children and our grandchildren. And maybe most important, it's about economic development, creating a new industry in Northeast Ohio that will create jobs, good jobs, jobs that will give all our residents an opportunity to make a good living. And I emphasize all our residents. I commend the council for their in-depth review and due diligence with respect to this project. This is complicated. I know that. There's no doubt. The residents that you represent should know how thorough and careful that you've been. For the reasons I've mentioned, I urge you to support this important economic development initiative, and I'm pleased to turn it over to Director Foley and Deputy Director Chanel to answer all your questions and do all the complicated stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Director Foley.
Thank you, Council President. With me is Deputy Director Chanel Smith. And she'll be kind of doing the final wrap-up. This is our third presentation to you, and you've heard my voice enough, and I think Chanel has to...
You want to introduce the other folks that you brought with you? I know people have been here before, but just so people are reminded of who they're representing in case they might have a question that goes directly to their responsibilities.
Sure. I was hoping that after Chanel, Deputy Director Smith's testimony, that Mike Wise, who's working on the solar aspect of the project, and Dave Karpinski from LEEDCO, we could all come up and just take any questions that folks have. But if we could turn it over to Deputy Director Smith, that'd be great.
Chanel's fine. Good afternoon, Council, and on behalf of the Department of Sustainability, I want to thank you for your engagement, continued interest in questions regarding the LEEDCO and the CURB projects. For background, we are considering a proposed long-term energy contract with Cleveland Public Power. included in the contract for energy use for 17 county-owned buildings, would be the opportunity to procure up to 4 megawatts of solar and 1.8 megawatts of wind power through LEEDCO. At face, this resolution is about purchasing electricity for our buildings, but it's actually about much more than that. It's about establishing Cuyahoga County as a leader in clean energy, about being a pioneer, about building a sustainable future, about improving our environment, our security, and it's definitely about social equity. These projects are an example of the county using its purchasing power to support locally made clean energy. With this purchase, we will do some good by putting 6 turbines in Lake Erie and 14,000 solar panels on up to 2 of the county's 35 capped landfills. This project is about inclusion. Without you supporting this legislation, we will miss the opportunity, this emerging job and business development opportunity. Inclusion is something that we've talked about, and I want to be very clear to this committee. Fairness and equity is at the very core of the LEEDCO and CURP projects in many ways. Here are just a few. For example, for the solar project, we embedded the community benefits agreement goals into the RFP. Although we have not selected a contractor, 2 of the final 4 are either MBE or FBE certified, and all contractors have agreed to comply with the equity goals. For LEEDCO, the county will be working with Emerald Cities Collaborative, the Great Lakes Wind Network, and the City of Cleveland to embed those same goals into LEEDCO's RFPs, from everything from supply chain vendors to the actual construction of the turbines. Other than inclusion goals, it is important to remember these key points about this proposal. Cleveland Public Power will virtually net meter up to 4 megawatts of landfill solar, something only Cleveland Public Power can do in our community. There will be no extra cost for transmission and distribution. The distribution rate is fixed at 0% for 16 years. The rate schedule from CPP gives us a 10% discount on their published base rates and will be set for the next 16 years. And our model shows that we will save up to $2.3 million over 25 years. Since our last committee hearing, the PUCO has allowed for First Energy to increase its rates by $1.2 billion over the next 5 years. This is likely to result in a 4 to 5% increase in their distribution rates. This is yet another example why we are taking advantage of CPP's rate distribution, their rate distribution and their 10% freeze through 10% discount. In closing, we appreciate your time and patience because we know this is complicated, and your consideration, and we ask for you to support the resolution. If you have any questions, Director Foley and our partners are here to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Chanel Smith or and her party? Go ahead.
The core 2 components are the solar and obviously the wind turbines. On the total cost of the solar, what is the amount of money that's going to be spent locally versus the amount of money that's going to be spent to buy the solar arrays, the racking systems and things like that? And those are, I assume, other than the racking, I know there's some racking is being built here, but are there any solar arrays that are actually being built in Cuyahoga County?
Yes, through the chair to Councilman Schron, there are already solar arrays that exist in Cuyahoga County. CMHA has a 1 megawatt solar array.
No, being manufactured.
Being manufactured?
Yeah, because if the bulk of the cost, and then can we put a number on the solar array and racking system piece of, if the whole cost of the solar system is $1, what percentage of that it represents, for my simplistic mind, the racking and the cost of the transmission lines and the cost of the solar arrays that are probably not made here in Northeastern Ohio? And probably Mike could speak best to that one. I'd be willing to bet.
Mr. Chairman, the racking system we're hoping will be made, as you pointed out.
I know there are some racking being built here,
Yeah,
yep.
down in Dayton and also in Youngstown. There are solar.
Some being
panels.
built in Cleveland too.
Are there?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
hope they-
There's one, not more than a mile away from my office,
Well, I
so.
hope they bid on it. Who is it? Do you know?
Yeah, well, I don't want to sound like I'm a homer for them, but I'll tell you afterwards and
We'll talk, okay.
go bug them, yeah.
But the solar panels, there is a company in Toledo that does make solar panels, so they could be part of the project. But your question, about 80% of the total project is the racking system and the solar panels and
Okay, so,
the transmission lines.
so the ability to have the inclusion piece is only going to be limited to the 20% of the cost on that,
I mean, for Cuyahoga County?
for Cuyahoga, yeah. I mean, if 80% is being spent for capital equipment and it's not being manufactured here, until we get to the point where we're actually making solar arrays or here in Cleveland, that
But
piece.
the labor is important too.
Yeah, that's the other 20%. And then let's go to the wind turbine. I'm not sure who can give me that same number as a percent. Again, we're only talking a dollar, so what piece of that dollar is the mechanical systems and because those are my understanding are all coming from 100% coming from Europe at this point in time for this.
Not necessarily. The blades will likely be made in Europe because those blades aren't made here yet. One of the things I would say about the wind project is when you place a capital order for the turbine, it includes logistics, transportation, subassembly at the port. So there's a fair amount of that will actually be done locally. We'll employ local logistics companies. The foundation is we have a qualified vendor for the foundation, which represents about 10 to 15% of the project capital cost overall. In addition to that, there will be the installation, and there are several local companies that could play a role in that installation. There will be port logistics, port employees. So if you kind of figure all that together and just take out the pieces that you'd actually buy overseas. So the cable isn't made in Cotw County, no one makes the cable, and the turbines themselves aren't made here. So if you take all that out, that's those two things together are about 25% of the CapEx.
So 75% of the CapEx is going to be local, you're telling this?
No, I'm saying that's the potential to be local.
Oh, okay, other way
yeah.
around. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's about the same ratio as the solar arrays as far
Yeah,
as.
about 75%
Okay.
has the opportunity for
Okay.
for local content.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, just wanted to have a question in regards to the dates on the contract. You had to 28, which is 12 years out, and I thought it was always explained to us that this was a 10-year, the first initial, but our contract is saying to 5/1/2028.
Yeah, Councilman Conway, our current contract goes until 2018 with AEP and CEI. It's anticipated that the solar will come on before then.
Gotcha.
And at that point, then CPP is willing to facilitate the solar coming into our buildings. Into this building and I think 310 Lakeside is the current, we have three buildings that have current CPP contracts, so we can funnel it into those buildings.
Thank you.
From the standpoint of the job creation component that we anticipate, which I assume is going to come either as a result of making solar arrays someday here or making wind turbines here, it's not going to be in making the bases ultimately, it's not going to be the big game. What is your best guess as to when the solar arrays come on board and when the wind turbines would come on board as far as from a manufacturing job and value-added components, if we look at a reasonable expectation?
Yes. So the first thing I'd like to say, Councilman, is the foundations are a large part of this. So when you think about the fabrication costs and logistics of getting them installed, that could represent 15% of the CapEx, 20% of the CapEx. So that's a big deal. The cables was probably likely not to be manufactured here because there are a handful of people that do that. The question when it's going to be done is not so much a matter of time, it's a matter of volume. So, when the industry starts to scale, these are pretty fundamental logistics decisions of if you have enough scale to deploy, then that's going to justify local manufacturing and local assembly. And that's what's going to drive it. So I think as we watch energy policy and demand for this kind of energy and other prices kind of change, I think that's what's really going to drive it. So I think it's difficult to say, when that's going to be because there's so many factors, but it's really a question of scale.
What's your guess? Because this body is being told that one of the reasons why the county executive stood up there and said it's going to be a job creator. Tell me when the job.
This project is going to create jobs to start with.
Yeah, that's
For
the
investment you're
foundation.
making.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's, the project has a net benefit. I can't project state, national policy, what's the PUC going to do? How are things going to react? I think, I'd be lying if I projected something because there are a lot of factors. I would say people have said about when you get to a couple hundred turbines a year, the volume, that's when the turbine OEMs would start to think about putting a factory in.
So you can't give us a handle as to whether this is a 6-year or a 10-year or all 16 years before the
I'm
job's
sorry,
up.
there's so many factors that,
Well,
that drive the
okay,
creation of the
but
industry.
you're asking this body to be one of the key components, not just the foundations. I understand the 15%, but that's a one-time transaction. Those 6 are in, and those foundations are done. I believe you're telling this body that the job creation is going to be in the wind turbines, the blades, and maybe not the cables,
The
but
foundation, Councilman, every project will have to have foundations built. Every turbine has to have a massive piece of steel that's installed into the lake bed to put the turbine on top. So every project has that element. And I would say, this project is sold on certainly that vision of creating a new industry with all these jobs, but this project itself has a net benefit. So this project alone, if nothing else happens, saves money and creates jobs and creates tax revenue. So I think when you look at it that way, we always thought it was kind of a no loss because you're not asked to invest in this. This has a net benefit with the potential for tremendous benefit in the future.
we heard the words, it's going to create a new industry. Just give me, if you're asking this body to commit for 16 years, which is what really you're asking this body to do. None of us will probably even be here in 16 years, but you're asking some of us to take the faith-based on the basis you're going to create a new industry. When? I know. So obviously,
Yeah, I think that's really a challenge. But I guess I would go back to this project itself, pays for itself for the net benefits of the county.
okay. Mike, anything on the solar?
It's been in the record at some point, yeah. I think so, yeah.
We were just talking, because there was an economic impact analysis done of the offshore wind project. And the numbers were pretty exciting just for the 20 megawatts, but they were incredibly exciting for 1,000 megawatts, which is what is envisioned. To get the 20 megawatts in, have it be successful. If you put 1,000 megawatts out on Lake Erie, you have to have an industry here in Northern Ohio because you can't service that scale of development without the industry being here in Northern Ohio. And I mean, what Dave said, I mean, that's going to depend on who's the next governor in the state of Ohio, who's the next county council, who's the next county executive, because public policy is still instrumental in developing offshore wind. I mean, it's not a mature industry yet. It's like nuclear was 50 years ago. It had incredible public support to take nuclear to where it is today, and that's what offshore wind is going to need. But a little bit different on the solar. It's not so much the racking systems and the panels, because that is a fairly mature industry. What's unique is solar on a landfill. And there's only a handful of projects like that in the country, and if we can do a big one here in Cuyahoga County, the professional team, yes, the racking system, the inverters, the other electronics, because we have strong, whether it's Eaton or Parker Hannifin or other companies that hopefully will be a part of this, to be able to take that expertise outside the state would be really exciting, because Ohio would be a leader in landfill solar if we get this project done.
But you're really not anticipating that this is going to yield a solar array industry?
Well, solar panels
and all the stuff that's being made in China at such a low cost at this point in time.
I don't think we ever sold it as the panels.
No.
But yes, the racking system, the electronics, the construction expertise, all of that will be developed here for this project, and is transportable to other projects in the state and around the country.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
The comment was made that only CPP could do this, and last session I raised the question of the viability of CPP. There was lawsuits that won't be disclosed and so on. If something should happen to CPP where it has to be changed, taken over, so on and so forth, can we talk to that? The viability, and if there should be a failure with CPP?
So Councilman, there's, two electric distribution utilities, CPP and CEI. CPP actually has a higher bond rating than CEI does at the moment. This is a contract that is minimally for 10 years, and then because of state law, there's a presumption that we'll do another at least 6 years extension based on the same terms. If CPP were to go under for some reason, someone else had to buy them, look, there's lawsuits that'll take place, but they're buying our contract, basically. They're buying our 17 buildings with the contract terms in place. So I can't predict what's going to happen to CPP or CEI. As kind of we talked about pretty frequently, the electric distribution or the energy sector in general is pretty volatile. But my sense is that there's going to be a lot of effort to CPP is working hard in this space. Look, they're working hard to get us as customers. They're getting more customers out in the community. That's one of the reasons why they're interested in virtual net metering, is that they can look at stealing customers, basically, and putting clean energy into people's buildings through things like what we're doing with solar arrays. So I can't tell you, as I say, I can't tell you what's going to happen to CPP or CEI in the future, but CPP is in a better state financially right now, at least according to the bond markets. And they've been around for 106 years. They've been pretty stable. They've got a pretty decent service, sector that lines go out. They're pretty quick about getting lines back up in place and running pretty quickly. I guess that's the only thing I can tell you is that if they were to go under, someone's buying our contract, and our contract is a pretty stable contract.
I guess the answer that I was looking for is that CEI can't do it now, but whoever would take over if there was a vacuum, we would still have the same ability to have our contract.
I think, I apologize, that's the answer I meant to give you, is that the contract is what the contract is. It's 16 years of pretty stable, of the straight distribution rates. And if they go under, I'm not a contract attorney, so I'm not going to pretend to tell you I know all the logistics and legalistic stuff involving contracts. But my belief is that if it goes under, they buy our contracts. All right.
I have a comment. Well, obviously, I've been supportive of this project all along. It's an amazing opportunity to become leaders in an emerging energy green economy, which we know is coming. It's just a matter of when. So we need to be at the fore of this and stand out as stewards, not only of the planet, but also as future-thinking leaders. We can become lost in cost and risk and lose the bigger picture of helping us not only save money, create jobs, mitigate the damage that we're seeing firsthand of global climate change. And most important is to really start to reverse the trend of urban sprawl. This is what's going to put us on the map. This is what people are going to look to in Northeast Ohio and say, I want to move to Cleveland. They have winning teams, they have the RNC, but they also have a bold vision. And this is really what's going to attract people to come here. And when I came into this council seat, that's something I wanted to see happen, and I really think this is the key to changing the dynamic of sprawl. So even if it's one job, even if it's one turbine, it's something. If we do nothing, we're going to just be in the same place we are now. So this is something we can't pass up. So I'm really pleased and excited, and just urge my council members to put this on for second reading, and thank everybody as part of this team.
Any other comments by members of council at this point?
I'll comment.
Councilman Jones.
Okay. And I support the project as well. But again, I'll just reiterate, I want to see the inclusion and apprenticing of contractors, minority contractors in the building of the wind turbines. So we just want to continue to remember that inclusion goal.
Any other comments? Thank you, Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Conwell.
I have one last question through the chair, and I don't think I asked this question. Would the initial 6 windmills be in the city of Cleveland borders? I know it will be put out and it won't be seen from the shore, but I'm just making sure that it's in the city of Cleveland.
The wind turbines will be 8 miles north, a little bit northwest of the center of Cleveland. It's actually in Cuyahoga County waters, I think past 3 miles, I believe. So it's outside of the city, directly north of the city, but in Cuyahoga County waters.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Jones.
have we identified the owners of those 6 wind turbines? Or 8?
So, Councilman, the owner would be Frettles Renewables USA. So they're the developer. They're the ones that would invest the equity necessary to leverage the loan to pay for those wind turbines. So the contract would be with that entity that would pay for getting turbines installed, own and operate them, and then sell the power through this contract and receive the revenue back from that.
All right. Okay, well, I just wanted to say at this time that I've been watching this for quite a while, and from a lot of different vantage points over quite a few years, actually. And I think this project has the potential of being one of the most significant things that the new county government has done in the last 6 years, and it's pretty exciting. And but it is complicated, and it is something that a lot of people had every reason to want to test it as much as they possibly could before supporting it. Right now, what we're looking to do is move it forward to the full council from the council of the whole. And so I would like to make a motion to recommend resolution number R 2016-10137 to the full council for consideration for second reading. And do I have a second?
Second.
A first and a second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes, one abstention. Mr. Greenspan is an abstention. And so, a recusal. Yes. And so we'll move the motion to the full council. Any other discussion? Thank you very much. Right now, we're going to be going into this executive session. And it's good to see State Representative Mike Wise, who I served with many years ago, and haven't seen him since. So good to see you, Mike. Really appreciate it. All meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meetings laws. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During the executive session, council confers outside of the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, the council's committee of the whole will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters. During this time, our live stream will be down. We will ask all those not specifically needed for the executive session to remain in the council chambers. Council members will convene in the adjacent room A and will re-enter the meeting once the executive session has ended. Is there a motion to go into the executive session for purposes of discussing collective bargaining matters? Been moved. Been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll to go into executive session?
Moving to executive session, Ms. Simon? Mr. Greenspan? Yes. Mr. Miller? Yes. Mr. Germana? Yes. Mr. Gallagher? Yes. Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston?
Yes.
Council President Brady?
Yes. And
Motion
the
carries.
motion carries. The ayes have it. We will adjourn to the meeting for executive session.